Oh. Actually, we did land just outside the sewage plant. So that's exactly where we're living. Not in it, but beside it.
It was a nice grassy area.
It was very fertilized. All right. Hey, Thomas, how are you? Very good. Y'all have been a very enjoyable group, and we have thoroughly enjoyed our stay here in the Rocky Mountain State, and we hope that someday we can come back and help additional churches. Really, the best way for this to spread is through the success of the churches that are enrolled. And I knew that when we started this, that this school would not last long if there was not a track record of success. And so we want to make sure that as you guys are developing the spiritual the training, that we provide you the very best that we can offer, because your success is kingdom success. And that's what we're all about. It's not about me. It's not about the school. It's not about Windsor. It's about the kingdom. And we want to make sure that the kingdom grows. And we're grateful for the support you've provided this week. I'm very pleased with the number of members who've attended. You're looking at your core group, and no church starts with 100%. But when you've got that core group, we're going to make sure that everyone's involved. But there needs to be certainly a solid foundation through which we can build together. In Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 and 12, Paul provided the church the necessary tools in order to become the kingdom that God wanted on earth. And in that very chapter, Paul talks about the divisions of some of the miraculous abilities given to the early church. But when he gets to verse 11, he begins talking about the various and the sundry roles and model of the roles that the different members would have. And he says, and some will be apostles. We don't have that position tonight. That was a temporary position for the development of the early church. He said, some will be prophets. Again, we don't have inspired prophets today, but necessary for the early development of the church. He said, some will be pastors. A truly needed role for leadership in the local church, for the maturity of the church. In order for a church to be fully mature, she needs to have pastors, that is, elders. And then he says some will be teachers. We need teachers, and the church, in order for the church to be what God wants her to be and to be complete, she needs teachers. Then he says some evangelists. For the church to be what God wants her to be, there must be evangelists. Not everybody's an evangelist, but there's got to be evangelists in the local church. I don't expect that every member of the church becomes an evangelist, just like not every church is a pastor. Not every member of the church was going to be an apostle. Not every member of the church was going to be a teacher. Not every member of the church was going to be a prophet. But those were necessary as God was ordaining or setting up the church for fulfilling the ministry. And in fact, in Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 12, he says, for the equipping of the saints. He says, if we're going to properly equip the saints, you've got to have evangelists who are equipping. So what we want to do in our local churches is develop a group of evangelists. Not every member will be an evangelist. Maybe you won't be an evangelist. It's okay. But we know in order for the church to be equipped and reach her maturity, there must be evangelists. I'm afraid in our current state in the church, we have many congregations that are existing, but there is not one evangelist among them. Not one. And we will never be the church that God wants us to be if we don't have evangelists. Not every preacher is an evangelist. I know preachers, and that's just not who they are. Maybe their talent is they're just very academic, scholarly, and they write books and they research, and those are the guys that know the Hebrew and the Greek. And I'll just be honest, I'm not that guy. But I'm glad we've gotten preachers like that. And so I'm not even suggesting tonight that not every preacher is, and it's ideal if your preacher is, and I'm sure Lynn is, but I'm not suggesting that you won't go to heaven if you're not an evangelist. But you need some. Brethren, we must develop evangelists at Windsor. And that needs to be more than just one. I was finishing a lectureship on evangelism. Ronnie Hayes is the preacher in Adamsville, Alabama. That's where the late and the esteemed Brother Franklin Camp preached, and they recorded his entire series through the Bible. And Brother Hayes had called me and says, "Hey, Rob, I do a soul-winning lectureship every year." I said, "Brother Hayes, I know you do, and I'm sorry I can't come." He said, "I've not been able to attend." He said, "We want you to speak on it." And I said, "Brother Hayes," I said, I live on the road." He said, "Rob, I've got your calendar pulled up on the website, and I noticed you're going to be home that day." I said, "Brother Hayes," I said, "Yeah, I know you're just a couple hours from the house. I'll tell you what, I'll come up and I'll speak for you." He says, "Rob," I said, "what day do you want me to speak?" He said, "All days." I said, "Brother Hayes, that's 3 days." He said, "I know." And I said, what hours do you want me to speak?" He said, "All hours." I said, "That does not sound like a lectureship to me." He says, "I want you to come give me every lesson you've got." So I pulled into Adamsville, Alabama, and we began our series together. It was a really good crowd of people. And I noticed there was a man sitting in the front. He had a cane. He had to be in his 90s, but hunched over, but he must have been a giant. He was still taller than me. And so, in any case, when we finished the series, I noticed he was waiting patiently before he arose out of his pew. And eventually he arose. He came up to me with a book in his hand. And I'd been watching him with a clenched hand hold on to it. I didn't know what it was. He brought it up to me and he said, "Preacher," he says, "Christians have been trying to pry this out of my hands for years and I wouldn't give it to them." He says, "Yours." He said, "Just take it." And I said, "Brother," I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's a dictionary. I want you to have it." I said, "Brother, I've got a dozen dictionaries in my library." And I said, "Why do I want this dictionary?" He says, "You need to open it up to the word Christian." So I was very curious. So I opened it up and I immediately began looking for that word Christian. And I found it. He said, "When you get there it is, I want you to read the definition of the word." He said, "This is not just any ordinary dictionary. It's a college dictionary from 1957. He says, "I want you to read it." I said, "Pertaining to or deriving from the teachings of Jesus Christ." I said, "Brother, I don't get it. That's pretty ordinary." He says, "No, keep reading. Believing in or belonging to the religion of Jesus Christ." I said, "I don't get it." He said, "Keep going, preacher. Exhibiting the Spirit of Christ, being a follower." When the dictionary committee came together that year, they changed the definition of Christian. They said a Christian is a member of the Church of Christ. They're a Campbellite. It's the only time in the history of the dictionary that when they came to the defining of the word, they put us in there. Brethren, we were growing so quickly they couldn't deny us. We defined the word. Now, I know they use that name Campbellite in derision. And in fact, there may be some of you tonight, maybe your children, maybe they're, Lynn, I don't know if you've ever been called a Campbellite before, but I know that maybe these boys back here, maybe you've never been called a Campbellite in your life, and you don't even know what that word means. But let me assure you, when I was your age, I walked into the barber shop, I sat down on the chair, the barber looked at me and he said, "Where do you go to church?" I said, "The Northern Oaks Church of Christ." He said, "You Campbellite." The word Campbellite was derived as a term of derision. It was coined to make fun of, to slow down, to try to pigeonhole the church of the New Testament because we were growing so quickly. Our numbers were increasing so rapidly. The only thing they could do, because they couldn't beat your doctrine, the only thing they could do is to make fun of you. And so they derived that term and they put it in the dictionary. And they said, "Christian, it's a Campbellite." Do you know why you're not called a Campbellite today? Because most people today don't know the difference between a member of the Church of Christ and a Mennonite. They don't have to make fun of you. You're not a threat. Brethren, we're not a threat. We're not growing. We lose 18,541 church members every year. We close a church every 3 days. We're 25 years from almost being extinct in this country. And that's why they don't call you a Campbellite today. I relish the day when they have to make fun of the Church of Christ again. Brethren, we have cocooned ourselves in our church buildings. Most people have not a clue who we are. When once you said you're a member of the Church of Christ, at least they knew. They heard of you before. Many people today have not in fact, are you one of those Latter-day Saints? We must address this problem. And in order for that to happen, we've got to train evangelists. And what I'm going to ask you guys to focus on, and I hope and pray you'll do this for the next several months, is help develop evangelists in this church. And not everybody will be an evangelist, but you got to develop some of them. And then those evangelists will ask you to do certain things. They're going to say, hey, I need some help. I could use your assistance. And so we're going to begin to change a culture in the church. And I said it, yes, change a culture. Because there must be an evangelistic culture in our churches and for the church to grow. And so our culture right now, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, is very toxic to growth. It's inward. It's an inward culture. It's about us. It's not about the people on the outside. It's about the inside. And so cultural changes are difficult, but they're necessary. And in businesses and organizations, those who are in positions of authority and power and influence know that culture that is created within that organization is key to the overall survivability of that organization. And if you got a toxic culture at work, that job won't last long. You ever been to a toxic job environment? You know what happens? Well, I'm going to contend that we've got a pretty toxic work environment in our churches. We have to change that. And it will not happen until we start training our church members. A sermon won't do it. Lynn, this is not, I'm not laying the blame on preachers. A sermon just won't do it. This has got to be all hands on deck. This has got to be every member of the church coming to an understanding that, yes, there's a role for me. In fact, there's a part for all of us. Take your Bible to 1 Corinthians 12, and let's look at it just very briefly, how Paul lines this out. So he says, listen, there's these different roles, and every role has a different purpose. Pastors, they had those shepherds, bishops, they had an administrative role, and those teachers had a role. But in 1 Corinthians 12, Paul says this, verse 12, for as the body is one, it hath many members, and all the members of that one body being many are one body, so also is Christ. Then verse 14, for the body is not one member, but many. Brethren, I believe that you have everything you need to complete the body at the Windsor Church of Christ. It's just that we've got to train the members how to become that particular or be effective as that particular part of the body. Can you imagine this morning if you got up and your left hand said it wasn't going to function? I like what the Apostle Paul says here. I really do. Verse 18. But now hath God set, this is good. Has God set the members, every one of them in the body, as it pleased him. He's given the body everything it needs to succeed. Not everybody's an evangelist. But everybody's got to be part of seeking and saving the lost. Everybody. You have a role. There's a place for you. Terry, there's a place for you at the Windsor Church of Christ to reach the lost. And there's a place for these young men back here to reach the lost. There's a place for your preacher to reach the lost. There's a place for everyone here. All those ladies over there, and some who think, well, I'm just not important. I'm a widow. I can't do it. There's a place for those ladies. And not everyone has a position where they're seen. Not everybody's going to be in a position where they're recognized. In fact, and Paul says this. Look at this, verse 23. He says, verse 22, nay, much more, those members of the body which seem to be more feeble are necessary than those members of the body which we think to be less honorable. Of them we bestow more abundant honor. And our uncomely parts have more abundant comeliness. Some of us are just uncomely. And when you're uncomely, we'll bestow greater honor. Brethren, I promise you, if you got up this morning and your unseemly parts weren't working, you wouldn't be here tonight. You'd be in bed. They're important. Not seen, but they're important. How important are those widows? How important are those older ladies, younger ladies, married ladies with children? How important are those mothers? How important are those wives that care for their families? And some of them are having to go the extra mile. How important are those older retired men that maybe their sun is setting, maybe they don't have the strength they once had, but there's something for them to do. Here's what I'm trying to say. In the early church, Paul identified Ephesians 4:11. He says, listen, there are different roles for the church to be equipped. And what I want us to understand is for us to become the church God wants us to be. It won't happen tomorrow. A seminar don't fix your problem. You can't just check this off. This isn't a banner statement in the front of the auditorium. We're doing evangelism this year. Brethren, until evangelism becomes the culture of this church, it becomes who you are, it becomes what this church does. Evangelism is not what we do, it's who we are. Until that happens, you won't grow. It has to take the centerpiece of the church. It's got to be the centerpiece of the family. It's got to be the centerpiece of the pulpit. It's got to be the centerpiece of everything you do. It was the center of Jesus. It was who he was. For the Son of Man comes to do what? Seek and save the lost. Brethren, I've stopped by to tell you tonight that if in your life, the centerpiece of your life, if it's not seeking and saving the lost, you are not like the Son of God. Have you ever stopped to think about that? If the center of your life is not seeking and saving the lost, if the center of your life is the football game, you're not like the Son of God. I'm not opposed to the football game, but that's not the centerpiece of my life. The centerpiece of my life cannot be my children, because I'm doing my children a disservice if that's the case. The centerpiece of my life is not my job. The centerpiece of my life is not my house. It's not my boat. It's not my guns. It's not my hunting. It's not whatever it is, guys, you like. That's not the centerpiece of your life. The centerpiece of your life is reaching lost people. It's seeking those who need to be saved. And if we can teach our children how to do this, I'm asked this all the time. Hey, Rob, how do we save our children? We're losing our youth. I will stand by this statement. You teach your children, you teach your youth group here how to be an army of soul winners. Teach them how to reach the lost. Teach them how to teach their friends the gospel. And when they teach their friends the gospel and bring them to Christ, you'll never lose them. You'll never lose them. Once you turn them into a soldier and they taste victory, you won't lose them. In our churches, we entertain our children with so many activities. I made a list recently, Lynn, in my office of all the youth things that we do. I came up with 15 different things that we do in churches. And we have never been worse off. I'm not opposed to working with our youth. Nick, I think we should. Lucas, I think we need to be mindful of the challenges they have. But perhaps we're going about it and perhaps we're not emphasizing what needs to be emphasized. That means train them how to be soldiers. Show them where their place is. So when they leave the nest, they know my place is to seek and save the lost. And I've been equipped and trained to do it. I know how to do it, and I'm going to keep doing it. Can you imagine what would happen in our churches if we had a congregational plan where we trained widows and widowers, men and women, mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, children, teenagers, how to be soul winners? I think we could turn this around in no time at all. Remember, from 1947 to 1953, the church doubled in size. That was 7 years. We are not beyond hope. The war has not been lost. Brethren, you serve tonight an offensive God. Offensive. He's on a war footing, and we are not. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but we wrestle. We're in a war for the souls of men and women. And you are the men of the church. It's your job to be a fighting soldier. Sometimes I wonder, where are the men? They're playing with their trinkets and toys. when they need to step up and develop that culture in the local church where we can reach the lost, teach our children, lead their families, show their wives. We have too many wives leading their husbands. We need husbands to lead their wives. A congregational plan. Winston Churchill said something that bears repeating. Things were going very poorly in Britain. The morale of the people had never been lower. Defeat was on the horizon. Churchill could smell loss. And when a leader was needed, he rose to the occasion. He stood before Parliament and he said this. He said, he who fails to plan is planning to fail. My fellow countrymen, we have no plan and we're going to lose this war. So my question to the church at Windsor tonight is this. What's your plan? What's your plan to reach this community? What's your plan to train your soldiers? You need to put this church, brethren, through basic training. Period. This church needs to go through basic training. One thing I like about the analogy is that, not everybody that goes through basic training becomes a Navy SEAL. But you need a couple of them. Not everybody becomes a sniper, but we need a few. And not everybody drives a tank, but we need a couple. And everybody has a different skill set. So it doesn't matter if your health is strong or weak, if you're young or old, there's a place for you. Number one, procure your equipment, gentlemen. You got to get ready for battle. We've got to put in our hands and in the church, in the hands of the servants, in the hands of our soldiers, the equipment to win the war. They need Bibles. We'll ship thousands of Bibles over to India. And in our own communities, we have people right now. I bet if we went up and down the street, we would find people who don't even have a Bible. We need to make sure that we have Bibles ready to use if we're going to study the Bible with people. We need large, giant print Bibles because a lot of people today, due to poor health, maybe they don't see as well. We just need to be ready. We need Bibles in our churches, ready to use, to give out. That's it should be obvious, but many churches don't have Bibles and they have to order them. You shouldn't have to be ordering Bibles. You should have them on hand. We need materials like Back to the Bible, ready to use so we can engage people in Bible studies. We need materials like Does It Matter, Believe the Bible, Open Bible Study, Searching for Truth, Jewel Miller Film Strip Bible Study Series, whatever it is you're going to use. But you've got to procure your equipment. You need to put it in their hands. You need to put a rifle in the soldiers' hands so they can fight. Our members are not armed. They're ill-equipped. Think about it. They don't even have the tools to do the job. And if you're a man and you're not given the tool to do your job, you can't succeed. So whether it is you need a forklift or you need a shovel or you need a IT equipment, you need some kind of electronic equipment, you need tools, you just need an old craftsman, set of tools to do your job, but you got to have them. And we've got to procure equipment. We need to provide our churches the materials they need to bring people, like invitation cards, new mover baskets, visitor baskets. There's so many things we can use in this community to bring people. We need to secure the materials needed to teach some of our members, our evangelists, how to conduct a Bible study. We need to share with the church. Here's a simple tool you can use. Here's how you use it. What about new converts? What do we do when we finally have victory and we have someone who becomes a Christian? Let me tell you, did you know the worst place for a new convert? Here it is. The worst place for a new convert is in the adult Bible class. And that's where we put them. You're feeding on steak and they need milk. Do you know what happens when you give a new convert steak? They choke. It's the funnest class in the entire church. And I don't know why my brethren don't have new convert classes. It's an easy class to teach. We're talking about the fundamentals. We should never place them into an adult class. They should have their own class, and we should meet with them Sundays and Wednesdays. We should be making sure that they have the needed materials. We need materials for this community so that we can reach them. There's so much that's needed. And while our churches are completely prepared for the next fellowship meal, I mean, we've got coffee pots, coffee creamer, coffee cups, coffee grinds, coffee stirs. We got everything we need for our coffee. And we've got refrigerators and microwaves and ovens and tables and tablecloths and salt and pepper and sugar and spoons and knives and forks. And I would know tonight, if you ran out of those things, you'd go get them. Where's your equipment, brethren, to reach the lost? You need to put it out there where people can get it. Place it in a highly visible place. Don't bury it in an office. Don't lock it into a cabinet. Brethren, get it out there where the people can get it. Put it out there like on an evangelism table. We encourage every church. One of the first steps is you get a table. I'd say something right around this corner, right here, would be a good place for it. You put an evangelism table, and you make sure that the church knows there's your equipment, there's your supplies. Everything you need is right here. We're going to make sure that our members have, if you need a back to the Bible, you got it. If you need a muscle and a shovel, take it. If you need an invitation card, take it. But we're going to make sure that the churches have the equipment, and we don't lock it in a locker. We don't put it in the preacher's office. We don't hide it in the teacher's resource room. And we definitely don't put it in the library. Wendell Winkler used to say, the most unused room in the church building is the baptistry, and likened to it is the church library. We spend all this money and no one ever goes in there. Let's put the stuff right out where they'd have to trip over to get out of the building. Number 3. Let's provide the church the training to do the job. I'm going to ask a question, and I want some participation. I want to know how many of you men in this auditorium tonight have ever gone to a training class so that you are trained how to do something for your work. How many? Raise your hand. All right. Everybody. How many of you have ever been to a training class to teach you what to do when a visitor walks through the doors? How many of us have ever been to a training class to teach us how to address or approach a new mover in your community? How many of us have ever been to a training class to teach us how to invite someone to church? How many of us ever been to a training class to teach us how to successfully knock doors? How many of us have ever been to a training class that teaches us how to conduct a Bible study? How many of us have ever been to a training class that teaches how do you deal with someone who doesn't believe in God? How many of us have... My point, brethren, is this. The reason you're a major in the reserves, the Air Force Reserves, or the National Guard, is because you've trained and trained and trained and trained. That's why you're a major. That's why you have your job. You're good at it. If you weren't good at it, Bob, they never hired you. And if you weren't good at it, I wouldn't have got in that hot air balloon today. There was training involved. Lynn went to preaching school to get some training. He went to school. Brethren, we need to train the church members. We have got to train the church members. It's okay. He's practicing. It's okay. That's all right, son. You just practice. We need to train our people how to do these things. So that's number 3. So you can't buy your way out of this. And I know churches, man, they'll get all this material and they, man, we're ready to go. And it sits in a library in a box. No, you gotta train your people. You put it in their hands and you say, this is how you do it. And I tell you what, I think the definition of the military is training. That's all you do. You train for one purpose. And you pray to God you never have to use it. You just train. Well, I think we need to do more training. 2 Timothy 2:2. The things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men who shall be able to teach others also. Brethren, that is not just for preaching schools. That's for churches. And we've got to start training. Number 4, we've got to change the atmosphere. We've got to promote a culture of evangelism within our own ranks. Brother Jenkins, he's gone on to his reward, was known to be one of the great evangelists of yesteryears. And he wrote evangelism material. He was at the Deerfoot Park, Roebuck Park Church of Christ in Alabama. The church was thousands of members. I was able to go to the church. It's now Deerfoot Park instead of Roebuck Park. And they said, Rob, teach us how to evangelize. Well, I was a little stunned by that request because the late, great Brother Jenkins was known to be one of the best soul winners around. I got to the church. It was no longer 2,000. It was about 400. Some of the elders remembered Brother Jenkins when they were younger. I met with the elders and I said, brethren, I said, if you had one thing to tell me about what made Brother Jenkins such a great evangelist, what would it be? He said, Rob, when he was the preacher here, he said he made sure that everything we did at this local church said evangelism on it. And if you couldn't make it evangelistic, you didn't do it. He said he called it the funnel. He put it on the top of the church. He said, you can't fit evangelism through it, you don't do it. Everything we do is about saving souls. Everything we do is about reaching the lost. Everything we do is about helping people go to heaven. We are not a country club. Brother, this is not the Lions Club. Let them hand out the eyeglasses. I'm not opposed to handing out eyeglasses. Let the Habitat for Humanity build homes for all the homeless. I'm not opposed to helping the homeless. But you are never going to solve world poverty at the Windsor Church of Christ. It's not going to happen. Jesus said, the poor will always be with you. You are not the soup kitchen. I'm not opposed to helping the poor. But what happens when that becomes your mission? You'll be busy. You'll feel good. We passed out 500 meals this past week. To God be the glory. How many souls did you save? Because they'll be hungry tomorrow. Is it possible that some of our churches in their zeal to help humanity have forgotten that their purpose is to reach the lost? While we're trying to heal the physical body, we forgot about the spiritual. Again, I'm not opposed to helping the poor. Please don't misunderstand my statement. But let me give you, you say, Rob, help me understand. So let me help you. Hello? Yes, this is Deb Rice, Secretary for Jacksonville Church of Christ. Yes, ma'am, you need some help. Okay, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. What kind of help do you need? Oh, yes, ma'am. We'd be glad to help you with your food bill. Yes, ma'am. Oh, well, no, yes, ma'am. What you need to do is come Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, and we can't wait to meet you. Oh, I just can't make it at 9 o'clock. That's just too much for me, and I just don't get up that early on Sunday. That's okay. We do it at 10 o'clock too. Well, I just can't get there at 10 o'clock. That's okay. We do it at 6 o'clock once again. Oh, I just can't. Sundays are not good days for me. Don't worry. We do it at Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, and we can't wait to meet. Oh, I just don't have a car. Can't make it. Don't worry. We'll pick you up. Brethren, if you can't get them in this church building, if they won't walk into this church building, if we can't pick them up and bring them into this church building, guess what? Well, I'm sorry, there's some social services you can call. We do our help on Sundays when we couldn't wait to meet you. Miss Kim is her name. She said, oh, wow, yes, I would love you to come get me. And so we said, well, Kim, we'll pick you up about, 8:45 or so. So we picked Kim up, brought her to the church building, and she sat right by my wife and I. The secretary brought her right over to us. Now, this is one of our members, Rob and Nicole. This is Kim. She called for some help. And wink, wink. Mel Hutzler, they baptize 20 people a year at Northern Oaks in San Antonio. I said, Mel, how do you do that? He said, every time, Rob, we have a visitor walk into the church building on Sunday morning, we have several men prepared to teach a Bible class for the newcomers. We call it Back to the Bible. In fact, when they walk into the church, we say, hey, welcome. Are you visiting? Are you new here? Yeah, we are. He said, yeah, we got a special class for visitors. Kind of introduces the church. Would you like to come to the class with us? Well, sure, I'd like to come to the class. I just so happen to have these little booklets. He says we baptize 20 a year doing that. Isn't that simple? I said, why didn't I think about that? Kim was sitting next to me, and she was a little late, so we couldn't do that. After the services, I looked at Kim. I said, Kim, did you enjoy the service? Oh, I did. Yes, I did. I said, Kim, I understand you need some help. Yes. I said, well, we have a little custom here at this church. We always invite visitors out to eat. Could we invite you out? Well, sure, I'd like to go out to eat. So we took her out to eat, and after that, I said, Kim, now what was it you need? I needed some groceries. I said, well, there's a DG. Y'all have DGs in Colorado? Are you kidding me? You're the first place I've been that didn't have a Dollar General. Okay, Dollar Generals are everywhere. You'll get one. Don't worry. Oh, I was going to say I thought. Oh, DGs. Okay, Dollar Generals. Well, they're about in every street corner in Tennessee. And in any case, so we took her there, got her the canned goods, and got everything, and walked into her place, unloading it. Her house is mold infested. It's government housing, mold infested. I said, Kim, have you had any health problems since you moved here? Been sick ever since I moved in. I said, Kim, you have a mold problem here. I said, we happen to know that the local guy that runs these. We'll give him a call. We did. One of the elders called him. And he apologized. He said, listen, I got a brand new one opening up in about a week. She can have it. I told Kim. She was excited. She said, I can't move, Rob. All my family, she said, they dropped me off. And, Rob, I don't have much family. I just lost my mom and dad. I said, Kim, we'll move you. We had 4 men, trucks and trailers showed up at that little house she had. We loaded her up. We moved her over the next week. As the men and the women are setting everything up, Nicole and I sat on the couch next to her, and I looked over at her. Now we're ready for the transition questions. Y'all remember what they are? Question number 1, Kim, what do you think about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? Oh, I love it. Y'all are the kindest church. Never been to a church that did so much for me. Number 2, Kim, how much do you know a lot about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? You know, I don't know a lot about your church. Rob said you're the nicest people I've ever met. Question number 3, Kim, would you like to know more about the Jackson? Oh, I'd love to know more. I just so happen to have these little booklets. And guess what we did? We did it 17 times. When I went to Jacksonville, Alan Webster said, Rob, he said, the problem we're going to have here at Jacksonville is that they do not believe what you're doing works. He told me that. He said they'd never seen it. They believe now. Success breeds success. It may take you 3 months, 6 months, but eventually, when the church begins to see the results of evangelism, they will jump on board. Show them, don't tell them. Number 5, you got to make a contact list. You'll never hit a target you don't aim at. You must have a target list. And so we've got to teach every church member how to develop a target package. You don't send a soldier out to war without telling them the target package. They got to know what their objective is. What is it that you want me to do, sir? What is it? What's my job? What's my objective? What's my target package? And so we've got to have I probably met with 40 elderships during polishing the pulpit. I do private counseling sessions for elders. And it's one of the most enjoyable things I do all year. I did it at Branson. I did it at Sevierville. It's by appointment only. I sit with elders, and the whole point of the meeting is, let's talk about evangelism. What are you doing? And so I'll listen, and then I'm going to ask my questions. Question number 1. I always ask the same questions. Remember, I'm very robotic. Number 1, how many contacts do you have? Who's on your target list? I want their name. We will never hit the target if we don't identify who we're trying to reach. So who is it? Debbie told me this afternoon in the hot air balloon, Don, that she's got somebody that you guys want to reach. She gave me their name. Start right there. You need a name. And you need a list, and we're going to give it to you. In fact, Lynn, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to preach a sermon on it. I'll give you the sermon. I need the church to hear a sermon on contacts. And I'm going to ask you, Lynn, to look at that church when you're done. Look at the audience and say, who's your Samaritan woman? Who is she? Jesus had one. Now, who's yours? We better start filling out our list, gentlemen. Your children need to have a list, and Nick, they're not your list. They have their own list. They know who's lost. When your children come to an age, they know who's lost and saved. I can remember I was 12 years old. I went to my dad, and I said, Dad, my best friend at that time, one of my best friends was Brooke Cerna. And I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, Dad, he's not a Christian, Dad. He believes he was saved without baptism. And my dad said, son, you'll have to teach him. He became a part of my target package. Mel became on my target package. I started just listening in my head. And from that day forward, I just started thinking about, I don't want you to see plumbers. I don't want you to see pipe fitters. I don't want you to see electricians. I don't want you to see any soldiers. I don't want you to see HVAC workers. You know what I want you to see? Contacts. So how do we do that? First, we make our target list. And it will be a congregational list. I'm going to help you with it. You need to do it together. This is not something nobody's Rambo. All right, we're all going to do it together. And we're going to make sure everybody's got theirs. And maybe husband and wives overlap a little bit, and maybe your wife has her own target list. One thing we got to do is make sure the community knows we're here. And if the community doesn't know you exist, I guarantee they're not coming. And so you got to promote your local church. And what gets pushed gets praised. What gets praised gets pushed. And if your local church does not have a presence and people are not aware of your presence, are not reminded of your presence constantly, I promise you they're not coming. Of the 17 baptisms we had at Jacksonville, almost a dozen of them were a direct result or indirect result of this magazine. Because people will get it, and this magazine called House to House, Heart to Heart will advertise your presence and make people aware, and we have to teach you how to use it, because if you don't use it properly, you're throwing money away. Walmart understands the value of promoting their store. They know how to do it. That's why they're sending you sales flyers all the time. They're going to advertise their presence. Gentlemen, you must advertise the presence of Windsor. You say, well, Rob, they just live across the street. You probably have people living within a half a mile of this building who have no idea you're here. I guarantee that's the case. So you're going to have to push your presence into their mailboxes and remind them consistently, we're here, we're here. I was sitting, just happened to be home. I had a 3-week trip, and I rolled in late Saturday night. Sunday morning, I got up. Nicole went to see her mom. She hadn't seen her in a while, and with the kids, and I had to stay home. I looked over my left-hand shoulder, and there was a woman sitting in the back pew. I'd never met her. Alan Webster finished preaching, and they were doing announcements. I followed Alan down the aisle. I said, Alan, who's that lady? He said, it's got to be a visitor, Rob. I've never seen her. I said, yes. So I moved in behind her, and I sat down before the closing prayer. When the closing prayer ceased, she got up, turned around, and there I was. And I said, ma'am, my name's Rob. I'm a member here. Are you visiting? She says, oh, I am. Yeah, my name's Ellen. I said, well, Ellen, nice to meet you. I said, you live here in the community? I do. Are you here by yourself? Well, no, my husband was coming. He got a little ill, so I just came on. And I said, well, Miss Ellen, can you tell me what you thought about our preacher? Oh, man, that man sure does love the Bible. I said, yes, Ellen loves the Bible. She says, and I like the Bible. I said, well, I do too. And I said, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I said, we have a little custom. We'd like to invite people to go out to eat. She said, wait, sir, do you got an evening service? I said, we do at 6 o'clock. Glad we weren't closed. The last thing churches of Christ need to do is close down their services. Brethren, we need more worship, not less worship. We need to make opportunity for people in our communities to know we're here. And I said, yes, come. And she said, I'm going to bring my husband. Is he feeling better? Sure enough, 6 o'clock that evening, I actually called Nicole and brought her back. And she wasn't very happy with me. I said, honey, I got to have you back. I said, we've got a prospect. So she drove back. That lady and her husband sat on the back pew. We sat with them. I got to know him. His name is Perry. I looked at Perry. I said, Perry, we have a little custom at this church. We always invite visitors out to eat. Perry, what's your favorite restaurant? He said, Athena's. And I said, oh boy, Athena's. No, I don't ask that question anymore. Athena's, reservations. And I said, oh boy. And I said, but I didn't even hesitate. I said, Perry, we'll go to Athena's. You take me to Athena's? I said, why not? I said, we always invite visitors. It's our custom. Well, man, if I'm going, Rob, my stomach's not been feeling too good lately. Can I make a rain check to Tuesday night? I said, absolutely. On Tuesday night, Perry and Ellen went to Athena's. They walked in. We sat around the table. I could care less about the lasagna. I got one mission, and I'm going to find it. I'm using my introductory questions. Hey, Perry, what do you enjoy doing? He said, I love sports. I said, I do too. I said, man, I coached for 10 years. I said, I love them. My daughter, my son all played. I said, Perry, what do you like, NFL? He said, no, disrespectful. I don't watch that anymore. I said, me neither. Remember what Paul said? What did he say? That's right. I said, Perry, you like NBA basketball? No, but the thugs. I said, thugs. Thugs. I said, Perry, what would you like to watch? He said, man, it's all in college, Rob. He said, man, it's college. He said, Rob, go Alabama. Oh, no. Go Alabama. If I've got to like Alabama football to get a Bible study, so be it. I don't care because I have one mission. I will accomplish my mission. I sat across the table from him and we talked Alabama. He said, Rob, we got a statue for Nick Saban. I know it's called idolatry. No, I didn't say that. And he said, Rob, we love Nick Saban. He's a great coach. So we're just talking football. I can talk football if I need to talk football. I said, hey, Perry, did you know the national championship game's tomorrow? He said, I know. He said, they left Alabama off that day. I said, I know it's terrible, Perry. I said, Perry, are you going to watch the game? He said, yeah, I wouldn't miss it. I said, you know, tomorrow night we're having a football party at my house. What was that? Oh, that was my wife kicking me because she did not know about this party. I have one mission, gentlemen. She knows. He looked over his wife. He said, can we go to the Whitakers and watch the football game? She said, well, I don't see why not. Ellen looks at Nicole. Can I make something? She says, no, I have it all taken care of. Y'all know what that means, don't you? All right. So they come over to the house. Now, I'm going somewhere with this. All right. This was one of the turning points at Jacksonville for the church. We're sitting in my house. It's halftime. It's a blowout. I said, Perry, why'd you come for the Jacksonville? I'm just curious. There's 12 churches in Jacksonville. I mean, what made you come here? He said, well, 21 years ago, Rob, y'all started sending us this little publication called House to House, Heart to Heart. We get it every month. I love it. I said, why? Because it's all about the Bible. My church doesn't follow the Bible anymore, Rob. He says, and we're looking for a church that does. I said, Perry, would you like to know more about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? He said, yes. I said, I just so happen to have these little booklets. They're called Back to the Bible. We'd love to start immediately. And we baptized Perry. We baptized Ellen. And we're not done. And then we went to Nick, their son. We baptized him. Then we went to his wife. We baptized her. Then we went to his son's son. And we just kept going. And that's what happens when you evangelize. But I promise, if we didn't send that publication, they wouldn't have come. On the back, we advertise events. You guys need events at this church. You guys are strategically located. And I'm not sure how you put it all together, like a trunk or treat or something where you can get people to come and just meet you, an open house of some kind. You need people in this church building. Let me give you an example. Carnes Church of Christ. They called me before I came. They said, hey, Rob, we have a tradition here at Carnes. We give out backpacks for all the kids when they start school. I said, I like that. And they said, Rob, can you figure out a way to make that evangelistic? We've never had any really luck. We pass out lots of back. I said, sure. When I get there, I said, who do I need? He said, our deacon of evangelism. I said, I can't wait. So I met their deacon. He takes me into the room. Brethren, they had 500 backpacks standing by. They were prepared. They had more than Walmart. And he said, well, tell me what you normally do. He said, we put the cones in the parking lot. We lined it off. We put them through the line, We give them a little track on the church. Rob, we'll pass out 500 backpacks in about 4 hours. I was not impressed. The Lions Club can do that. I said, brother, would you mind if I made it? No, the elder said that, we want to know how we can. I said, well, why don't you put the backpacks in the Bible classrooms? And why don't you require the people to come into your church building? And why don't you have the members stationed where they could do an open house and walk through your facilities? And then why don't you have the teachers in the classrooms passing out the backpacks to the children where they will be attending when they come? And then why don't you have a meal prepared and eat with them and get to know them and then escort them out to their house? Rob, we can't do 400 backpacks like that. I said, no, but you'll have a Bible study. And they did. In fact, I brought the Bible study right to Steve Higginbotham, their preacher. I said, hey, Steve, you got a Bible study? Huh? Yes, this lady right here wants to do a Bible study. Could you do that with her? And they did. The very day we passed them out. That's how you produce an evangelistic culture. I'm not opposed to backpacks, gentlemen. I'm not here to shut down your programs. I'm just saying if we're going to do something, let's make sure it has an evangelistic center to it. Let's not pass out backpacks and make sure the kids have school supplies. That's not your job. I'm not against helping people. And if you guys want to donate crayons and safety scissors and glue sticks, go for it. But let's make sure that our emphasis is let's develop contacts so that they can be saved. We're going to offer things like free tracts. We're going to give them to you. Free bookmarks, free posters. In fact, we're going to say, here's free videos. And one issue, we offered the book on marriage, a free video and a book on marriage to improve your marriage. Hello? Yes? Yes, ma'am. Your name is what? Brenda Glaze. Brenda, where do you live? And you would like what now? The marriage material? We'll make sure to get it to you. Thanks for calling, Brenda. So Deb Rice calls me. She's the secretary. This is when I'd only been there about a year. And she calls me and says, hey, Rob, we've got someone inquiring about that marriage material. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, Rob, we normally mail it. Would you like me to mail it? I said, no. But Rob, we always mail it. I said, and you also don't baptize. I said that here. Because I know what happens when you mail things. Nothing. I said, put it in my box. I got back to the church. Nicole and I delivered that. And I'm going to take you through the process. I think you'll learn something from this. I did. She opens the door. Now, I always take my wife. I never knock a door without my wife or a child. Gentlemen, never knock a door alone. For 2 reasons. Ethical, number 1. Number 2, productivity drops tremendously. When they see that gray-headed beard thing of yours go to the door, they are not opening it. They're scared to death. Bring your wife, they'll open it. It's just because we just don't, Nick, they're not opening the door for you, I'm sorry. They're just not. But they're opening the door for your wife or your children.
This sounds like a beard thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just making an observation. But I've noticed this. Here's what I've noticed in all real seriousness, gentlemen. If they see my wife, they open the door. If they see me, it's problematic. So I always stand aside and let them see my wife. So she opens the door. She peeps her head. Yes, sir. I said, ma'am, my name's Rob, my wife, Nicole. We're from house to house. You asked for some marriage. Oh, I did, yeah. Well, I'm glad you came. I said, well, ma'am, we have it all right here for you. Did you just get married? I did, about a month ago. I said, well, wonderful. Congratulations. Who's the lucky man? His name is Daniel. I said, well, congratulations to you and Daniel. She says, yes. She said, did you just move here? I did. We just moved here, and I don't know anybody. I said, really? And I said, well, ma'am, again, my name's Rob, my wife, Nicole, and we're just here. Can we help you in any way? Well, she says, I think I need some help. She said, we've been looking for a church home. Yes, ma'am. She said, do you know of one? I said, I do. There's one right about 2 miles from here. And it's called Jacksonville Church. Oh. She said, so you go to church? I said, well, yes, ma'am. Well, so I got another question for you, sir. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, do you know anything about the Bible? I said, the Lord, what? Yes, ma'am. I know a little bit about the Bible. I said, a little bit. She says, good, because my husband knows nothing about the Bible. Daniel, get up. And she starts yelling across and there's this man, big man. He's about 6-something, and he's sleeping. And she comes over and shakes the man, literally shakes him. I don't know what that man does all day. He comes home and goes to bed. Get up, Daniel. We have guests here. She brings Daniel to the door. Daniel is staring at me. There's little Brenda. And Nicole and I are kind of looking at each other. And she says, Daniel, she says, we're going to teach you the Bible. You could have blown me over. We baptized 7. It doesn't work, you know. Not in a college town. That's what I was told when I went to Jacksonville. It may have worked way out there in the sticks, Rob. It won't work here. We're sophisticated. Everybody's got a college education here. We're kind of, different. In Jacksonville, we got the college here, JS State, It won't work. They didn't know that. We baptized 7 of them. Rob, door knocking doesn't work. We've tried it. I bet you haven't tried what we teach. I'm going to ask that you just give it one chance. Let us train you how to do this. And I bet you'll get results that you've never seen before. Every place I go tells me it won't work. We've tried it. They don't come to the door. It won't work. You got to go through a training class. And those are our numbers. I share them publicly. And that's our rate of success. We average about a 30% success rate at the door. You see where it says Thursday 83%? Does anyone want to ask me how we got 83%? That's called new movers. They're the most successful contacts in your community. What if I told you, Bill, that I've got a list in my folder right now of every family that's moved into Windsor? Would you want it?
Sure.
I have it. I'm going to talk to you more about that later. That's the 83%. We average 80% with people who move into the community. We'll make contact with them. New movers are a very effective contact creator. My wife right now is teaching your ladies how to go shopping in the name of the Lord. They're going to do God-authorized shopping. They're going to be excited because the Lord authorized it. And you're going to let them go shopping. And they're going to go get items for new movers. And we're going to give them a gift. You never go to the door without a gift, Ari. When they open the door and you have a gift, they will smile at you. They won't curse you. They'll thank you. It won't be an insignificant gift. And you're going to offer them gifts because they're new. And maybe you can say this. Hey, I've lived here for 25 years, and I understand y'all just moved into the area, and we're just trying to be friendly. Welcome to Windsor. We made a little basket here to offer you. We hope you'll enjoy it. My name's Rob, my wife Nicole, and we got some children. And is there anything we can do for y'all? We know moving's kind of difficult. You come to a strange place, and is there anything we can do to help you? We have a list here of local services. I know it's hard to find them sometimes, but these are carpenters and electricians and pipe fitters and whatever else you guys want to put on the list. 83% of those people become contacts. Not 83% of them are converted, but they become contacts. And that's step number 1. And you'll never go anywhere if you don't get past step number 1. Did you know pretty much everything I'm talking about is in step number 1? David Shannon spoke at Polishing the Pulpit a few years ago, and he said something that I thought that was challenging, and I'm going to read it to you. He said, people are most likely to change churches when they move. A couple of generations ago, if a couple or a family moved from one city to another city, they usually stayed in that same denomination. Those days are over. He says, today, the average person is willing to look at any church in their community. This is a powerful opportunity for evangelism. It doesn't matter to me what church they were in the last town. I want them to visit the Church of Christ, for it gives us the best possibility to sit down and study the Word of God. One of the best contacts you have are the people moving here. They don't have a church, Bob. Why not here? They don't care where they go to church land. Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, Mennonite, they don't even know the difference. What about the thief on the cross? They don't even know there was a cross. And you're worried about the thief. We're not living in the 1970s. Our members will sit in the chairs, quaking in their boots. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to say when they talk about the thief. They're not going to talk about the thief because they don't know there was a thief. We're not living in the same generation. Most people today they're ignorant. And we allow fear to keep us from going out and meeting them. And that's got to stop. We got to learn how to send cards. A church of this size should be sending about 150 cards a week. You're well capable of doing that, but it's got to be very organized. Have an objective. People got to be trained. And if you don't do this right, most members give you one chance. Blow it, they'll never come back. This is important, and we're going to spend a lot of time here. My wife is going to do an entire lesson for a few ladies just on this one thing. I'll say this, we have more baptisms because of this one prospecting tool. You're in step 2 here. You have more baptisms because of this one tool than anything else in our school. If you have someone in your community right now that's fighting cancer, and you turn there, maybe they live down the street, and this church sends them 2 or 3 cards every day for 3 weeks, and then you and your wife go over to their house with a gift, and you knock on their door, and you say, hey, my name's R.E., my wife, and we're from Windsor. We've been sending cards. We've been praying for you. Is there anything we can do? We bought a gift. What do you think they're going to say? Anybody have any guesses? What are they going to say, Bill? Come on in. A little different reaction than slam the door and curse, isn't it? Because you tilled the soil with love and compassion. Brethren, this stuff works. I wouldn't be asking you to do it if it didn't. Is every door you knock going to equal a baptism? No. How many doors will I have to knock, Rob, to get a Bible study? 10. You'll have to go to 10 of these people that you spent 3 weeks cultivating to get one study. Bobby Bates once said, I like my way of doing things better than your way of not doing things. Jesus said, many are called, few are chosen. If you ever get to a point in a church when you're getting the many and not the few, you're no longer the church. You'll never get the many, gentlemen. But you have to go to the many to get the few. Isn't that what he said in Matthew 22:14? Many are called. So how many prospects does a Navy recruiter have to talk to in order to get one to sign the dotted line? Lucas, do you think they know the number? Oh, they know it. How many, anybody ever here work in the insurance? Anybody in sales? Ari, didn't you do sales? Somebody, who was it does sales? Nick. You know, a good salesman knows his clientele and how many people he's got to talk to, how many calls I got to make, how many dinners I've got to plan. We know our numbers. We know our numbers. Her name's Bettina. You see what she's holding? Cards. My wife and I walked in her house because the Jacksonville church did their job. And Homer, one of the elders, said, Rob, she's ready for the visit. I'd been gone for weeks. I just got back. And they said, Rob, we're sending you in. And I said, SEAL Team 6, we got to have evangelists. We send them in. And so I went over to her house. She's showing me all these cards. And she says, Nicole, your card's right here. She even knew where Nicole's card was. She had 47 cards. I said, Bettina, what do you think about the Jacksonville Church? I love that. Nicest people I've ever met. I said, Bettina, would you like to know more about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? She said, you know, I would. I have 2 pockets full. I just so happen to have these little booklets. She's holding book 1. And we baptized her. Next slide. I called Alan Webster when I was done. I said, Alan, I need some help. I said, it's going to take both of us to baptize. Brethren, you are not a civics club. You are the Church of Christ. And I pray to God that we'll do our job. To this intent, and now unto principalities and powers in heavenly places, it might be made known by the church the manifold wisdom of God. When the purpose of the church is no longer to make known to the world the manifold wisdom of God, we are no longer the church. May God help us be the church of Christ. Let's pray. Father, we're thankful for the church that Jesus bought with his own blood. And oh God, we're thankful for these men who come to represent their families and, Father, the kingdom here at Windsor. Father, we pray that you would invigorate these men with courage and strength and resolve. And Father, we pray that these men would step up to the plate and help to lead this church in a way that would bring honor and glory to Jesus, but Father, to reach the lost. And we thank thee for the opportunity to be together tonight and help us to encourage and lift each other up. Father, that we would follow in the footsteps of Jesus, for he is the captain of the Lord's army. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right, thank you, guys. We're going to have a leadership session in a few minutes. We'll make sure the ladies have dismissed before we go in there. And I think my wife is going to meet with just a couple of ladies. And then we will have the most important, which is going to be an actionable class on what to do next. Normally I just meet with 2 or 3 elders, but I realize that in this setting I'm looking at the leadership now. And so we'll be looking at that, what do I do next? And so if you're wondering what's the next step, I will give it to you in a very organized fashion. We're going to look at a curriculum together. We're going to do that in the classroom right behind the fellowship hall. I think it has a couch in it. Y'all know where that's at? Okay. and there's spaces set up in there, and we've got a presentation there for you. So I guess we just need to make sure they're done before we